everybody, my name is Catherine and welcome to my channel. If you've been watching any of my videos lately, you would know that I have been on a road trip in the Southwest region in the United States, specifically in Arizona and Nevada. And I feel like doing road trips right now with domestic travel has been so popular. When I was traveling in Arizona and Nevada, whenever I would go onto social media, I swear I felt like everybody else in my social media sphere was also in this part of the world doing road trips. I thought that I would do kind of like a overall video of tips and advice when it comes to doing a US road trip, and I'm going to specifically give advice for the Southwest region, or at least hotter climate regions. I think that's especially popular in the summer, so very fitting right now. Let's just get right to it. So first off, I'm gonna be looking down at some notes, so that's why I'm looking down. I wanted to go over, I found this list. I thought I'd list some of these things because I do agree with it. So the first thing is there's going to be a lack of cell service, and to keep that in mind, so be prepared to maybe tell family back home or friends that you may not be as reachable to get information such as hotel information or itinerary of your trip, addresses, things like that that you would want, and that you have that information before you lose reception. And with that comes possibly the need to download maps ahead of time. Another thing is to carry hand sanitizer with you, especially with COVID. So definitely bringing hand sanitizer would be helpful, because sometimes you may not have access to a bathroom, period. Sometimes there's outhouse style bathrooms that don't have hand soap. So definitely just good to bring lots of hand sanitizer. I last minute decided to bring a refillable water bottle with me, specifically a hydro flask. And I'm so glad I brought it. I used it all the time. If you are going on a trip like what I did, you will be visiting a lot of national parks or nature reserves, and places like that tend to have visitor centers. So definitely take advantage of them, whether it is to ask questions or get maps there, visiting the souvenir store. A lot of times they have like almost like a mini museum inside, so you can get to know the area. Another thing is reapply sunscreen. Even if it's gloomy out, just always wear sunscreen. For me, I wear facial sunscreen every single day, but especially with this road trip in this hot climate, I wore sunscreen all the time, every day, and to reapply it, because nothing's worse than getting a really bad sunburn. Another tip is to not overdo it. So I didn't really go into detail with where I just was, but basically I did a 2-week road trip, like I mentioned, in Nevada and Arizona. And throughout those 2 weeks, my friend and I, we had pre-planned visiting certain lakes in the area, natural parks, the Grand Canyon, things like that. And a lot of it required us to do hiking and being outside, being active. And especially in the hot climate that we were in the month of June, it's very easy to overdo it and to overexert yourself, and that's never a good thing. So if you're traveling, just make time to do more relaxing activities, have just time that's open in general so you can see the day of how you're feeling. Just know your limits, know you're human, and especially if you're going somewhere with an extreme climate, to really give yourself that extra grace, because me and my friend definitely needed to just have a lot of time allocated towards the pool or napping or something like that, because especially with the climate we were in, where it was every day over 100 degrees, we definitely needed it. And also make sure your car has plenty of gas, because being more in the out and open, you're not going to come across gas stations super often, and the last thing you need is to get stranded. So with my trip specifically, my friend thankfully is a intense trip planner, whereas I'm a bit more kind of go with the flow, and I think there's a balance when it comes to traveling. But I definitely think having plans of knowing where you're going, what days you're staying where, and just knowing what you're getting yourself into is very important. For example, I didn't know that there's fees to get into these different national parks, but because my friend planned so much, she knew ahead of time, and it was just really nice that we knew what we were doing which days. We could get tickets ahead of time because with things opening up, sometimes there's less availability to do certain tours. So just planning ahead of time while leaving space open for relaxing and spontaneity, I think is the best bet. Another thing is, because road trips right now in the US are so popular, there's a major rental car shortage in the US, and I heard especially in the Southwest region. So just make sure that you book your car like well ahead of time. Like as soon as you know you're going on a trip, book your car and like make sure it's booked, because I heard of situations where people like put a car on hold, or they like booked it but it wasn't official, or they didn't secure a specific car, and then they get to the place and they didn't have a car for them even though they had a reservation. So make sure when you're booking to like secure a specific car. Again, with the heat, it really does play a big factor into your trip if you're going to the Southwest region like I did. So for me and my friend, we would have to do activities surrounding basically the heat that would, you know, get hotter during the day. So I'm not a morning person, but I had to become an extreme morning person on this trip, because basically if you're wanting to hike around the Grand Canyon or just that region in general, or other hot climates in the US, but I believe the Southwest is like the hottest part of the US, is that you have to do it before 10 a.m. Like 10 a.m. you have to be done and in your car, because after 10 a.m. it gets like 100+ degrees, and no matter how fit you are, it's just not safe to hike in those temperatures. We're just, as people, not meant to be doing strenuous hikes when it's 110 degrees outside. And so what people would do is they would start hiking as soon as the sun rises, which was around 5 a.m., maybe just after 5, and they would allocate like 4 or 5 hours for the hike, you know, there and back, and then be done by 10. So people would wake up at 4, around 4, and then they would, you know, get to the park and park their cars and start hiking really early. So we did have a few mornings that were quite early in the morning, and that is one thing I would definitely recommend, is to look into the climate that you're going to, and to see what kinds of activities you're doing, and see the best time of day that it would be good to do those activities in. Also, when it comes to the heat, of course, wear your sunscreen, have lots of water. I bought like a sun hat that's specifically for reflecting the sun off of me, and it had like this long rim. Not the most attractive thing, but I remember one day on my trip I didn't wear it for like 2 hours and my head hurt really badly, and it's just like the idea of like getting your head fried by the sun also is terrifying to me. So I was like, the next day and after that I was like, I'm wearing the sun hat. I don't care if people think I look silly, I care about my health more. And then I also, of course, recommend sunglasses. Another thing is that at the beginning of the trip, my friend and I went into a Target. Once we already had our rental car, and once we were already like starting our road trip, we got a lot of water, we got a lot of snacks. Knowing ahead of time, we would want snacks for, you know, driving from point A to B on certain days, for hiking, specifically snacks. You know, also when you're waking up at 4 a.m. to start a hike, you're not going to be going into like your hotel's breakfast area and having a full breakfast. So getting snacks that you'd want to specifically have early in the morning and then hike after that. So for me, I like having a banana in the morning that's light and keeps me full for a little bit, and it's quick and just grab and go. And then I liked having protein bars while on my actual hikes. And I also got regular water and water with electrolytes. My friend got Gatorade, I just got water with electrolytes. Also, I did not have a hiking backpack before this trip because I'm not a big hiker, but I went ahead and got one. Some of these backpacks, they'll have a water bladder, and I definitely recommend getting one of those. Mine had about 4 liters, I would say. I wanted to get not a huge one because we were just hiking for a few hours, but I definitely wanted one with the water bladder. So what I did is I filled it up, and then I also, I believe, brought my hydro flask. I think it depended on the day. Sometimes I didn't want the extra weight, and sometimes I didn't mind it, so I brought it with me for extra water. I never ran out of water. I drank a lot of water and wasn't worried about running out. It would have like a little tube, I guess, that came out with the little bit that you like bite and drink the water with. So it was nice to be able to like just, if whenever I was thirsty and doing my hike, just like whip it out and just drink. I didn't have to unscrew anything or like take my backpack off, so that was really nice, and I definitely recommend that. The only thing is my backpack, the little bit that you would drink out of, it didn't have like a cover or anything, so I was always paranoid about that bit like getting dirty or touching things, because my mouth would go on it. And so I do wish the only thing different about my backpack would be to have a little cover for it, which maybe I could like get something myself to fix that issue. But my friend's backpack did have that cover on that bit, so that was nice for her. And I looked online and it says general rule, 1 full liter per hour of hiking in hot weather. I'm gonna quickly mention like the ideal travel day in my road trip, and one that if you're thinking about how to plan your trip around, this is what I liked. And this is for days that I didn't drive from one city to the other, because when there were travel days and it was like a 4-hour drive, obviously that was the most of it. But the actual like days when I'm in the city that I want to be, this is what would have been the most ideal situation. This not so ideal, but it kind of had to be done with the heat, and that is a 4 to 5 a.m. wake up time, and then about 5 or 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. hiking or walking, exploring the area, and then 11 a.m. lunch, I would say. And then after that, maybe like for a few hours, 12 to 3, do like a nap situation if you want to just nap, or the pool. Going to the pool was so nice on this trip, especially how hot it was. And then throughout our trip, we did different tours, whether it was like a helicopter tour in the Grand Canyon, or like just a tour in a van or something like that, or around the Grand Canyon. You could easily tour the canyon just by driving to different points. And so maybe around 3 p.m. we would have a tour of some sort. And then 6 p.m. would be dinner. And then after dinner for an hour or two at 7 or 8 o'clock, just relax in the hotel room, have like your Netflix time if you want it, have time to plan your day, your next coming days, and then at around 9 or 10 p.m. go to bed because you have to wake up early. The only thing I would say is we did a pink Jeep tour, which is an open air Jeep, and those we did in the morning, which we enjoyed doing it in the morning because it was an open air Jeep, so the sun was beaming on us. So if you're doing a tour that has you being more out in like the elements, maybe look into doing that in the morning. We also wanted to do like kayaking tour, but that was booked and we were not able to do that. So maybe those kinds of tours do in the morning. That has been my tips and advice based on the trip that I just did. I feel like it was kind of all over the place, but hopefully it was helpful. I tried to make it kind of tips for road trips in general, but a lot of them were tailored to road trips in like hotter climates. But I feel like most people are doing trips in hotter climates. Most of the US has been warm. We've been going through a heat wave for sure. So when I got back from Arizona and Nevada, I'm in the Seattle area, that was when we had that heat wave, and it was 110 here, so it felt the same. And that never happens here, so that was kind of interesting and a bit concerning. But it's calmed down, now it's in the 80s. But I hope you enjoyed, and thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, comments, let me know down below. And if you're going on any road trips or thinking of going to any, please let me know. I'm very curious to see where all of you are going, and I hope you have a great summer. Bye.